Do you ever wish someone would draw you a map and give you the directions to the career of your dreams? If so, consider this podcast your GPS to a career where you feel strong, fulfilled, and passionate about your work, day in and day out. On this show, I am sharing the tools to help you advocate for your strengths, discover your passions, and learn from folks who transformed their careers for the better. My name is Joyel Crawfors, your fairy god mentor, and with my 18 years of experience in HR at a Fortune 50 company and 20 years of coaching and mentoring top leaders, I am thrilled to be your guide on this career journey. Let's get started. Is it too late to reinvent yourself? That's the question so many midlife professionals are asking quietly. Today on Career View Mirror, I'm joined by Veronica Schabalenio, founder of Goldfinch Leadership and author of Second Draft: Rewrite Your Midlife Career with Creative Intelligence. Veronica helps leaders navigate midlife career pivots using what she calls creative intelligence, the powerful interplay between our emotions, creative thinking, and strategic action. In this conversation, we unpack identity shifts, career grief, midlife restlessness, and what it takes to rewrite your professional story without burning it all down. If you've been wondering whether your best work is behind you, then this episode is for you. Let's get into it. Let's start where we always do. Welcome, Veronica Scarpellino. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hi, Joyelle. Thank you so much for having me. I was very excited to speak with you.
I am very excited to speak with you too. And just a little background, Veronica and I are forefront coaches. We are in this, we're in the same cohort. No, we're in
Mhm.
different cohorts, but same big family of coaches, amazing world class coaches. And I'm so glad to have you on the podcast because, A, you live like about 15, 20 minutes, well, maybe like a little bit more, 35 minutes away from me, but I'm outside of the Philly area. And B, you're just a rock star. I love your you have a book club. I've been to the book club. You do a lot of things to help people rewrite and reinvent themselves. What experience inspired you to be in this career?
It's such a big question. But when you think about the topic that you set us up for and the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are when we're making our bumbling pathway through life, all of us at some point are tasked with figuring out who we want to be,
Mhm.
what is working and what isn't working, and sometimes that's been forced on us. Sometimes it's a choice, and that's wonderful when you get to choose it. But many times it's something that's thrust on you when you least expect it. And if you're in the throes of it, I mean, the words that you used for the introduction are so apt. The grief and the identity that go into it. I'm no different than anybody else. I had those same challenges that we all do.
Mhm.
Um, I like to refer to myself as a recovering artist. My first career was in the arts, professionally trained artist and sculptor.
Mhm.
And I got to a point where the passion and love of the process became outweighed by the realistic expectations of making it as an artist.
Mhm.
Not only the rigor and grit you needed to maintain a career as an artist, but I saw behind the curtain. I was working in galleries and museums and working with artists in their business side of their work, and um, it's not as romantic as many people make it out to be. So the grief, the identity loss, the that moment of existential crisis. If I'm not an artist, who am I? Mine might be a little bit more sparkly because of the art, but I think we all face that at some point. So, what was worth keeping and what was worth letting go? The grief that I had to go through in that identity, and clinging to what little I could of how to maintain a connection to what brought me to it to begin with. So, I went through my own reinvention story, and figured out what I was good at and how that aligned with what I was passionate about.
Mhm.
I came to realize that what attracted me to being creative wasn't so much the output, the object at the end. It was the process, it was the struggle and the problem solving that went into it, the curiosity that it requires, and that bouncing around of your emotions is something working, learning from your mistakes and iterating again. And when you read my work now, that's what I talk about with career reinvention. Um,
Mm.
it's it's the process involved with the creative side, but the medium is different. You become the medium,
Ah.
and when you're able to step back and say, "What is my creative thinking style?" Because it's not always artistic, but how do you identify as a um, a pattern recognizer, trend forecaster, an analytical systems thinker? What is your way of expressing your creative problem solving and owning that as an expression of being creative? When you do that, obstacles become opportunities to flex, to do the
Mhm.
thing you do well, and you're less likely to get tied down by setbacks. So there was that happened on the inside. That's what a lot of the work is. It's on the inside. On the outside, it looked like me making a logical, pathway that
Mhm.
didn't feel logical to me. Working in higher education, career services, and the
Mhm.
work that required working with these different thinkers and these different industries that
Mhm.
scattered in many different directions. Working with artists can be like herding cats. So working with different personalities, and everybody thinks that they're the different one. You talk to
Yes.
doctors, well, doctors are unique, and you talk to engineers. Well, engineers are different, and it's like no, it's not that different. It's not that different. It's just the way that it comes out. So the long way of answering your question is that the journey, the process becomes your own creative output in that respect.
That's beautiful. It's not the destination, it's the journey. I always we get focused and fixated on that end goal, that
Mhm.
end point. But I realize that there's really no end. Like there's always something else that, once you reach that destination, there's something else. But it's not that it part, it's the getting there. It's the getting there part.
It really is, especially since now you cannot plan too far in advance. We
No.
don't know what's coming our way.
No, no, we don't. And that's really frustrating for a card carrying control freak like myself. So I'm just, and I don't have very much patience, So but when you look back now, what dots connected that didn't make sense at the time? Like, did you see any like glimmers of this career as you were shifting, as you were, kind of looking maybe in your journey? Were there any like glimmers of that to kind of give you any ideas of, that you were on the right track?
The way that I use the word career now is so different because when you chart your path to be an artist, career doesn't mean the same thing. And so I had to relearn what that word meant, um,
Mhm.
and in some ways make it my own word. I think the through line was I followed my curiosity, I leaned into my strengths, and in all of it, I found that creative element.
Mhm.
I was tangentially associated with it. I was doing it myself, was surrounded by it, in support of. There was always some way up through a certain point of that being from the outside until I figured out that the difference was that mindset, that it wasn't the output in the process so much as it's the way of being and the way of interacting with the world. And then I was able to bring it with me wherever I went after that.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think it takes a lot of self-awareness to tap into all of that. So, talking about this creative intelligence, the
Hmm.
CQ, you describe CQ as the dynamic interplay between emotions, creative thinking skills, and strategic action. Break that down for us. Like, why isn't traditional intelligence or even emotional intelligence enough in midlife pivots?
So traditional intelligence is very analytical. It's very head oriented. And emotional intelligence um, can often be boiled down to your own self awareness and maybe awareness of others, but it doesn't necessarily give you the tools to discern what this emotion is what its purpose is. And I
Mm,
think that's where I was able to bring it to a different level, because I think of it as um, emotions are data. That's your data point. And it's
mhm,
not quite an advantage to be able to think that way, that when you feel fear, is this something that you want to just work through, push down, move aside, ignore? Or is this something that you can leverage and say, whoa, what is that? What's beneath the fear? Am I really in danger? And if I'm not in danger, then what is this feeling? And maybe it's not even fear. Maybe it's anticipation with anxiety and a little bit of memory that go together.
mhm.
But by becoming curious about your own emotions, you pull yourself out of this potential survival mode where you can begin to think expansively, where you can move into creative thinking. I call curiosity the gateway emotion. Because if you're only sitting in the emotions, it doesn't give you the insight to what do you do next?
Right.
And so you need the next step. And I think that when I started this work, emotional intelligence and creative thinking were different. They were separate. And I knew
Mhm.
they should be talking to each other because I had felt that through the process of being, until I found the great scientific work that supported that argument, and I was like, okay, good, I'll lean into this. But then as a coach, of course, we need the action piece. We can't sit in fantasy world. We need to be able to bring it into measurable, time bound,
Mhm.
goal based, and all of that. So then that's where the strategic action comes in. But with
Nice.
the creative mindset, it being experimental and iterative.
That is so
Because Miss, you just said control freak. I don't know if there's any perfectionism going on behind the scenes there too.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you run an experiment, you don't expect it to work perfectly the first time. You allow room for there to be some failure where you can learn more and get curious again and then iterate. So an experimental mindset can get you moving faster than waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect execution.
It's almost like creative intelligence is holding space for you to make space. Like it's giving yourself permission to create space so that you can be creative. Like it just seems like it's a really great thing to tap into so that you're not getting stuck. Like a lot of
Mhm.
people get stuck a lot, like either emotionally or they get writer's block, like, they're blocked, their imagination is blocked, or they can't take the next step to doing it. What's like the biggest place where people get stuck most often?
I think one of the most common descriptions of where they get stuck is overwhelm
Mm,
or even analysis paralysis. Um, and when you get into a sense of overwhelm, you feel stuck. And that overwhelm can be coming from a bunch of different places. Maybe there are too many options,
mm,
or you think that you have one thing that you want to accomplish, but if you really look at it, it's 15 things.
mm,
And maybe the reason you can't get going is because it's not just one simple move. So you have to break that down.
mhm.
Or there's stuff that you don't know yet. There's confusion or fear, or you haven't learned it yet. So there's questions that are around the thing that is overwhelming. One of the creative thinking tactics that I love using in those moments is question storming. So instead of brainstorming ideas, you brainstorm questions.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
So you might say, what do I not know about this that's getting in my way? Set your timer for 5 minutes. It's important to set a timer because you need that constraint. And you write down for 5 minutes all the questions that you have. And when you're done after that 5 minutes, then you review your questions and you say, which of these questions do I have the answer to?
Mm.
Okay, go ahead and answer those questions then. Of these questions, what's left, what can I find the answer to? Okay, now I can look that up on the internet. That's going to be in a book. And then maybe if you still have some unanswered questions, who do I know that
Right.
would have the answer? And so you do this, and then by the time that you're done with your question storming exercise, there's very little left that might be that anxiety of the unknown.
I love it. I love this because it just totally speaks to all of the things that I get stuck in, just by question storming, you can kind
Mhm.
of break the pattern of just being immobilized,
And
that paralyzation that happens when you're stuck. I love
pattern interrupt. That's exactly what we're going for.
love it. Love it. For someone who's listening who feels restless but can't name why,
Mm.
what might be a signal? What's a signal for them?
It's usually showing up for them like anxiety, right? Or um, a restlessness,
Mhm.
a feeling of what's happening in front of me is not where I'm supposed to be.
Mhm.
Um, Depending on how long you've been there, you might be feeling resentment toward a situation or another person, judgment that you're feeling toward the situation. So those might be the signals. Those are the emotions. That's sort of the creative intelligence. Those three pieces of it. There's not a start, middle, finish. It cycles among itself, and I'm doing this with my hands because they bounce off of each other. The
Mhm.
model that I use as an illustration is like an atom with the electrons circling around it, because it's not linear. You don't arrive, which can be frustrating for some people, but I think it's freeing for others. But the emotions are usually one of the things that start it. It's the catalyst.
Mhm.
So that's the thing that we recognize. You want the pattern interrupt. So you need metacognition, and you need to be aware of what you're thinking. You need to think about what you're thinking while you're thinking it, right?
Think about
There's
what you're
this
thinking. Think about it. Okay.
yeah, and that is like high level emotional intelligence to be able
Yes.
to kind of watch it from the outside and to
Mhm.
get curious about it. But and that would be sort of the next thing once you've realized that restless feeling is there. Get
Mhm.
curious. Oftentimes, the negative feeling is coming from like a values violation. Something you
Mhm.
value has been violated. It's not being honored, or a boundary is being invaded. So that's important to know. And wouldn't it be better to know that than to just stuff it down?
I love that. What does it look like what does CQ look like in action in the real world? Like for folks who are trying to like see it and act like, the people who are like, oh, this all sounds good in theory, but how do
Mhm.
I put it into practice?
Right.
So I don't know why. Why does that person sound that way? I don't know. I just made that voice up, but the
Right.
skeptic
So
voice.
let's say you're in a high stakes meeting, and the conversation is turning to it's a well organized meeting, and they're actually talking about next steps and assigning who's going to do what.
Mhm.
And suddenly you feel heat rising in your face, and you start to shake a little bit, and you feel angry, and you don't know where that just came from. It's sort of out of nowhere. Um, that's a moment to stop and say, what just happened? What just changed? I didn't feel this way a second ago. What just changed now? And it doesn't take a long time to go into curious mode. Just that
Mhm.
question, what just happened, allows you to become curious. I had something similar to this happen to me. So I'll be more specific.
Mhm.
I was collaborating with a consultant. We were planning a co-led facilitation.
Mhm.
And we were in this joyful brainstorming about what we were going to do. And she made a suggestion. And I suddenly got angry and mad at her. She didn't know this happened, but I caught myself and I was like, why did I just start to feel like that? And I mean, it was so quick. All of a sudden, I was like, because she said that thing, which makes me think she's assigned me work I don't want to do that outweigh, like it's now imbalanced. I'm now taking on what more than what I should be, I think is fair for the balance of this work.
Mhm.
And that's not the direction I want to go. So I stopped. I said, can I just pause for a second here? I think I may be misconstruing something you just said. Can you clarify for me what you meant by da 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 da? And she's like, oh, that? Yeah. So I was just thinking, and the way that she explained it was so not the way I
Not
took it.
yes.
And I laughed and I said, it was so funny. I was all of a sudden in my head like, oh no, I'm taking on more work. And she's like, oh God, no, I would never want you. And just like that, it was taken care of. And for me, I bring that up as an example because it was my first experience that it was so visceral. And I
Mhm.
was so quickly able to stop myself and notice my thinking while I was thinking it and get curious in real time
Mhm.
and have the next words out of my mouth be productive instead of feeling more resentful because I just took on more work that I wasn't prepared to do.
Right. And then seething for the rest of the call
And never
and
wanting to work with her
never
again and blah. Yeah.
never hear what she's saying after that. So,
Hmm.
yeah, no, I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that example too, Veronica. I want to give some shout out to your book. It's called Second Draft. It was endorsed by the Marshall Goldsmith. I love the metaphor second draft.
Hmm.
'Cause it talks about the next chapter, right?
Hmm.
Why do midlife pivots feel so heavy? Because a lot of my clients talk about that there's grief, there's sunk cost, there's identity attachment. How do you help people honor their first draft
Hmm.
without being trapped by it?
Right. I mean, it is such an emotional process.
Hmm.
The grief is definitely a big piece of it, the identity. But a lot of that identity goes all the way back to way early in life. Maybe that identity was assigned to you from other people, or maybe you've been acting it out with a child's idea of what that might be. No insult intended. I was trying to be an artist, like that. There's connotations.
Hmm.
And so what you're able to do now is actually quite exciting. Yes, the stakes are higher because you might have a mortgage, children, dependents, debt. There's things tying you down and that you need to be an adult around that you didn't necessarily have when you were younger.
Hmm.
You could take risks, but you also built wisdom along the way.
Hmm.
You're not starting from scratch. You built relationships along the way, and those relationships need to be reevaluated. Which ones are transactional or not going to be available to you when you pivot? Which are the real ones? And which ones
Right.
you need to develop so that you have a bridge moving forward? The was it my idea or was it forced upon me becomes a big factor.
Mhm.
Because if it was your idea, you're more inclined to be striving for something positive that you're moving toward as opposed to what you're running away from. There's some really wonderful work out there about transitions,
Mhm.
and it does sort of come in three parts. There's that closure that you need.
Yep.
There's the messy middle that that you're not there anymore, but you
Yep.
haven't gone to the future yet.
The
You
emotional
want to rush
piece.
through that middle part,
Yes. Because it's the feeling part. It's uncomfortable.
and it's the exploration, it's the rediscovery, it's the reframing, it's the retelling your story. It's the what's worth keeping.
Hmm.
It's the editing. What's worth keeping and what's missing that you want to add.
Hmm.
until you can move to the next thing, which is then there your strategy comes in.
Hmm.
So that's why creative thinking is so important during that transition time. There's early in your transition when it's new and you do have all those emotions. There's the middle of the transition where you're trying to figure things out.
Right.
And there's the later stages of the transition too, where you're trying to get your feet back and experiment still while you want to keep building.
Mm, I love it. I love it. Tell us briefly about the second draft studio and how does that group experience deepen the transformation between just reading the book?
Right. Well, the book came from the way that I work with my clients one on one. It was built off of a lot of the thinking tactics that we use, what I know about creative thinking and helping my clients find their own style and lean into that, and how to build their story. The book becomes your own self guided tour.
Mm,
But bringing it back into coaching seemed like a natural progression. Also, sort of that, the same pattern of winding it around with the creative intelligence, but now in a discrete small group of people where
mm,
you have like part book club, part collaborative brainstorming,
yeah.
and part, architecting.
Mm,
You get some one-on-one coaching that's part of it, but a lot of it becomes the collective wisdom of the room. And ideally, you have people who have different experiences than you that their lived wisdom can be shared, and it
indeed.
becomes this really lovely. This it's not very long. It's 4 weeks, and in
Hmm.
4 weeks you can get a lot done, especially when you are able to identify which stage of that transition am I in. So where should I be focusing my emotional energy?
Does the cohort, do they get together again? Like, do they connect? Like we do in Forefront, do they connect to keep in touch, or do they just kind of fly on and they're into their transitions after the
It
sessions?
depends. It depends on because it's this transition
Yeah.
experience.
Hmm.
It does depend on the relationships that are built. Some people, this was exactly what they needed when they needed it,
Hmm.
and these people were here for that season. And then others, they find someone that they just want to hold on to and be able to have as their new friend. Those new relationships that they're building for that future.
Lovely. Sounds like a beautiful experience.
It is, and it's one of those that it's making sure you have the right people
Hmm.
to have the experience. So it's not like a set date where we start with it. It's the once we have the right people, we start.
Ah,
Hmm.
I like that. I like that. It's almost like you're calling in people into this transition period together, like
Hmm.
it's transformation period.
A little bit of curating, if you will.
Yes, I
Hmm.
love it. I love it. So you didn't just pivot, you built a sustainable business around the framework that you created. What does a typical day look like for you now? Because, I get it a lot. I want to be a coach. I want to do exactly what you do. What does a typical day look like for you, Veronica?
Well, so Goldfinch Leadership is about 4.5 years old.
Mm.
So year one looked different than year two, three, four. So right now, coaches, we love to, at the beginning of a year, set tones, goals, use words to be the theme. And stewardship is a really big one for me this year.
Mm.
So these things that I've been building, stewarding them. Who do they need to see? Who needs
Mhm,
to see them? How do I evolve them into the
mhm,
next logical and effective framing? Um, because the framework, I didn't sit down one day and say, I'm going to make a framework that I'm going to use as my like calling card. The framework came from my lived experience and to say, what is it that I'm doing that seems to be working with my clients?
right.
And so articulating what I was feeling and doing. And so it's been easier to build the next off of it because
Mhm,
it's real to me. I live it.
love it.
So day to day now, I get to my desk at 8:30 every morning. I sit down at my computer. Part of my day to day might look different. There's some days where I have a lot of coaching calls.
Hmm.
There's other days where it's deep work and focus on writing and idea generating.
Hmm.
There's days where it's working on the business. So it's, how fresh is my SEO marketing? I was doing that the other day and making sure that that was updated for AI discoverability. I mean,
Hmm.
it's not always sexy work, but
Hmm.
it's attending to all the parts and pieces of the business. Um, in this season, I've been having a lot of discovery calls and writing proposals for different speaking venues. And next season might be more. I have my certification that I have launched.
Yes, tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us some more about the certification.
So, this was again one of those things where I didn't set out to say I'm going to make a certification. What would go into it? It
Mhm.
was these conversations I had with coaches, with people who worked in HR, learning and development, talent, who were saying basically human development professionals. Really, when you think about it,
Oh,
who
human development. I love that. I love that.
when I would talk to them about my philosophy and the way that I work, um, there would be like a light in them and they'd get curious and say, we really need this. This is valuable. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Until finally I was like, people are telling me they want this and they need this. So I think I need to make this because people are telling me they need this. So I created a certification in creative intelligence for human development professionals. And it's self guided on demand, so busy people can do it at their own pace.
Mhm.
And yeah, you learn what creative intelligence is. You learn how to do it for yourself because it always starts with us. Then it scales to another one-on-one work, and then it scales again to groups, which is more than just individuals. And then it scales again to systems, which is more than a bigger group. And so
Mhm.
we go through all of those and how this concept shows up and can be used in these different settings. I talk about the ROI of creative intelligence and even making sure this is really important to not replace anything that you do that you love to do, but this becomes an additional lens to do it better,
Right.
because I don't want anybody. Well, first of all, because I know that there's so many different thinking styles, nobody's going to think like me. Nobody's going to do it like me, nor would I expect them to. So
Right.
I wanted to create something that when they used it, they felt empowered to use it with their existing tools, frameworks, niche, because it's agnostic. It can work
Mhm.
anywhere.
And how long does the certification take?
Depends on you since it's self-paced,
That's right.
but yep. But the ICF, the International Coaching Federation, has vetted it and have approved 20 continuing education credit hours for it. So that's what is built into it as far as the rigor and elevating it to the quality of their expectations. So
Nice.
anybody who's a certified International Coaching Federation certified coach can use it for half of their renewal credit hours, which I thought was really important to be able to offer.
That's definitely a really big selling point
Mhm.
to those who are ICF certified. This is wonderful.
But I had one coach who sat down and did it in a week. And then I had another coach who said they did it rather quickly, but if they did it again, they would have probably done no more than 2 hours a week and spaced it out. So it
Yeah.
really depends on you and your level of reflection and absorption.
Oh, this is good. This is good to
Mhm.
know. And we're going
Mhm.
to definitely put her website in our show notes so that you can get more information about this certification if you're interested. Um, a few more questions. And
Sure.
and we're running out of time, so I've got to skip to my favorite question. If you could go back to your younger self, the young Veronica, maybe the version of you that's holding tightly onto that one identity,
Hmm.
what's one or two career leadership or leadership lessons that you would share with her?
Hmm. Well, being one of those kids that was very shy and felt big feelings, I would probably tell her, don't be afraid of your feelings. And I would also tell her that there's something really unique that she's going to be able to do that is creative. God, I wish I knew when I was like in high school about neuroscience. Like, if I'd known that that was a thing, like who knows where I'd be, but I don't know. I wouldn't give up where I am now.
I would just say you wouldn't be here now,
Right.
like, I don't know, you'd
But
still
it's
be
fascinating.
might be in a hospital somewhere working at Penn or but no, that's beautiful, that's beautiful, I love that, I love that advice, and, I say this a lot, but I need to reiterate it, that careers are not straight lines,
Mm-mm.
they're drafts, and we're allowed to revise them, and Veronica, where can listeners find Second Draft to learn more about Goldfinch leadership and explore the creative intelligence certification? Is that the
Sure.
website or do you have a different?
I did, yeah, it's all on my website, which is goldfinchleadership.com. Goldfinch like the bird, not the
Mhm.
swimming thing, which, by the way, Joyel, is the state bird of New Jersey.
That's right. I was like, why does this seem
Mhm,
so familiar? Yes, that was one of the
mhm.
things we had to learn in history class.
Well, as a born and raised Jersey girl myself, it's a little nod to my home state. And I'm also on LinkedIn, and so I welcome people to connect with me on LinkedIn. I write pretty regularly about these things. I have a monthly call it CQ snacks, creative intelligence snacks, which are just 30-minute during the lunch hour. Come experience it. I won't teach you creative intelligence. I'll get you to experience it in a way that when you leave, it was worth your time. But you'll find out about that on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. I love that. The snacks, and they're fat free.
Right. They might leave you wanting more.
Yes. Thank you, Veronica, for reminding us that reinvention isn't a crisis, it's a creative evolution. I so appreciate having you on this podcast. And like she said, goldfinchleadership.com is where you can find all of this wonderful information. Connect with her on LinkedIn. I follow her content. I haven't seen those snacks though. My algorithm seems to be a little wonky these days.
They're new. Yep.
Oh,
New
oh,
and improved. Yep.
new and improved snacks even. So yeah, I'm very excited to catch those, and I just appreciate you being here. And we have known each other for years, y'all, and we have yet to meet in person. So we are going to
Mhm.
set a date
Mhm.
after after we wrap and press stop. We are setting a date to meet each other in person, so that we can be even more creative together.
Yes.
Thank you again. And thanks everyone for listening and watching, Career View Mirror. And I say it at the end and I'm going to say it again. If you like this, share it, subscribe. And thanks again for being here. Thank you so much for listening to Career View Mirror. If you got value from this episode, please consider leaving a rating and a review for the show on Apple Podcasts, or head on over to Spotify and click 5 stars for our show. We also have a YouTube channel with video versions of our episodes, so subscribe over there for more content. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.